What's up, you guys? Void here, coming back at you all with another Commander Secrets video. Since you guys loved the first video so much about Fractured Identity, I decided, hey, might as well make a second video, give you guys some more awesomeness to work with. This time we get to look at another pretty cool card. It's kind of weird, but it's also extremely powerful. We have Blade of Selves from Commander 2015. A 2-mana artifact equipment that gives the equipped creature Myriad for 4 mana in the equip cost. Whenever that creature attacks for each opponent other than the defending player, you may put a token that's a copy of that creature onto the battlefield, tapped and attacking that player, or a planeswalker they control. Then you exile those tokens at the end of combat. So if you're looking at this card at face value, you're going to obviously think, let's just put the best possible creatures we can as far as power toughness, keywords, equip it with Blade of Selves, give it Myriad, and then swing. That way we have, in a 4-player game, at least 2 other copies of that creature attacking our other opponents. So it's very good if you want to use it that way to spread around damage, but to me that is very narrow and not really as satisfying. You could obviously throw this onto creatures that have good damage triggers, and that would definitely work out pretty well because you have at least the chance that someone isn't going to block one of your creatures and you get a pretty cool damage trigger. That could definitely work out that way. Pretty cool with unblockable creatures, but honestly that isn't even a thought when it comes to the real reason why this card is so funny in Commander specifically. And you know it was meant for the Commander format because Myriad is a mechanic that works out pretty much only in multiplayer formats. So either you're going to be playing a multiplayer game in Legacy, or you're not going to be using this in any other format other than Commander. So you also have the fun interaction with legendary creatures, which isn't something you would think would be good with this type of card. After all, you do want those creatures to be able to at least do something once you get those tokens out and not just immediately have them die because of the legendary rule. But there you go. That is the main reason why it is good, because those legendary creatures, you have to basically get rid of them. They die, you choose one of them that you want to keep, and the others, you have to put them in the graveyard. The main reason why that is so powerful is because we have a ton of creatures that work out pretty well either with good ETBs, because they still technically enter the battlefield, or they work out pretty well when those creatures die. So you have triggers, you have damage triggers, you have life loss triggers, you have a ton of different triggers for creatures dying, and believe it or not, there are a ton of cards that work out incredibly well, and all of which are Commander options I'm going to list off here. We have Sharuum the Hegemon, which is pretty powerful, pretty notorious as an artifact commander, getting at least 2 other ETBs, because again, for reference, I'm going to be assuming that for the most part you're going to be playing in a 4-player game, so you're going to get at least 2 copies of these. So that right there is going to get you 2 ETB triggers for Sharuum the Hegemon. You do have to basically kill off those other 2, but it's still worth it. You get 2 artifacts back from your graveyard to your battlefield. Never a bad thing. You also have Reaper King, which is another pretty cool artifact creature. Whenever a Scarecrow enters the battlefield, you get to destroy a target permanent. Getting 2 more copies of that entering the battlefield, well, that can be pretty powerful, because technically all of those permanents see each other in the same zone. Whenever they're entering or leaving the same zone, they see each other at the same time. So whenever another Scarecrow comes into play under your control, well, that's going to trigger 3 times. That's going to trigger for each Reaper King that you have, and you're going to get to destroy a target permanent times 2, because there's 2 Scarecrows that are entering the battlefield. So 2 times 3, that would be 6 triggers. So you would be able to destroy 6 target permanents by attacking with Reaper King that is equipped with Blade of Selves. I think that is fantastic. Now, if I'm wrong about the math, even if it is less than that, I apologize, but that's still pretty good. We also have the Kamigawa Legendary Dragons. Now, you have the other ones that also have some pretty decent effects when they die, but to me, Yosei and Kokosho are the most powerful. When those creatures die, they do something that is incredibly funny, and you get to keep attacking with them. So it means that if you have Yosei and you have those 2 different death triggers, you're going to be able to pretty much slow down at least 2 of your opponents, and then you can just keep attacking and just do it over and over again. I think that's pretty powerful. Kokosho's obviously a little bit more well known. Insane death trigger when it does die. You then get to basically drain life, at least 5 from each of your opponents. That's going to happen for 2 Kokoshos, and then you get to drain 10 life and then gain that much life off of each of your opponents, in addition to already attacking with a Kokosho. So already an incredibly powerful set of creatures here from Kamigawa, even more powerful with Blade of Selves. We of course have Marin of Clan Neltoth, something you may not know about, but you get even more death triggers with a Marin of Clan Neltoth, getting you pretty much all the experience counters that you'll ever need in that deck. It's not something I really like. I think there's obviously more efficient ways to get those death triggers, and once you have a certain amount of experience counters with Marin, it's kind of pointless to keep getting more. But if the deck just works out pretty well with death triggers, throw in stuff like Blood Artist and it should work out pretty well anyway, or even Grave Pact effects, those are always nice. We also have Teysa Orzhov Scion. This one works out pretty well. Not as good as some of the other ones, but it still kind of works. It's an interesting little interaction here. Whenever another black creature you control dies, you get a 1/1 white spirit creature token, so whenever you attack with Teysa that has the Blade of Selves, of course, those two Teysas are going to end up dying. And then you get triggers. You get one trigger for each of the Teysas that are going to enter the battlefield and then die because they don't count themselves, and the Teysa that you have it equipped to, which is probably going to be the one you keep, I don't know. That one's going to trigger twice, so you're going to end up getting 4 1/1 white spirit creature tokens. I think that's pretty weak compared to some of the other cards in the video here, but it's still noteworthy. I think it's an interesting interaction. We also have Vela the Nightclad. This one is also pretty good. Again, it's kind of the same deal. It's going to trigger twice for each Vela the Nightclad because you have 2 creatures that are going to be leaving the battlefield. Again, if you have a bigger game or a smaller game, you're going to have to adjust those numbers, but for the most part, we are in a 4-player recommended field here that we're going to be talking about. Usually that's what the average Commander game is going to be, 4 players. If it's 5 players, 6 players, you have even more of a win con here. All those Velas are going to trigger. You have 2 Velas leaving the battlefield, so that's going to be about 6 life that your opponents are going to lose each of them, in addition to your likely unblockable Vela the Nightclad, so that is a pretty disgusting interaction there. You also have Perforos, God of the Forge, which is a little bit more dependent on if he's a creature. If he's a creature, then it works. If he's not, then it doesn't. In some decks, that's a little bit harder. And again, you get 2 creatures entering the battlefield. It's when another creature enters the battlefield, so you're going to be able to deal 8 damage to each opponent if you get 2 more Perforoses that are entering the battlefield off the Blade of Selves. In a bigger game, you're going to be able to deal even more damage. It's just a pretty ridiculous combination there. So if you want to play Perforos, God of the Forge as your commander, noteworthy to throw in a Blade of Selves. And then we have what is arguably the most powerful, maybe next to Reaper King. I think the Reaper King one is pretty cool, but you have Omnath, Locus of Rage, which is honestly my favorite one with Blade of Selves because Omnath is easier to get out there than Reaper King, a little bit more consistent, something you could expect to see with a Blade of Selves more often. Giving it Myriad is just disgusting because you attack, again, if you have at least 2 other opponents, you're going to get 2 other Omnaths that are going to die because of the legendary rule. They're just going to be put into your graveyard. That's going to trigger Omnath, Locus of Rage because of the legendary rule, and they all see themselves at the same time as they are leaving that zone. So you have 3 different triggers. For each Omnath that you have, you're going to have 2 of those damage triggers that you're going to be able to deal 3 damage to a target creature or player, so basically a lightning bolt. So that right there, you have 6, about 18 points of damage, I believe, but you basically have, yet again, 6 different triggers. So that's 6 different lightning bolts that you get to use. I think that's a pretty cool interaction, and obviously it does go up the bigger your commander game is. So you have a pretty cool way of getting a ton of damage, able to deal that to your opponents. I think that's pretty amazing. But if I had to say which one is my favorite, I'm going to have to go with, again, the Reaper King combo. I think that is just super deadly. But you have Omnath, you have Kokosho, you have Yosei. The Yosei lock is already a pretty powerful thing in Commander. If you're able to make that even more powerful, being able to keep your Yosei and having token versions of Yosei that die and then trigger on their own, I think that's very devastating as well. So you have all these different options, and there are definitely more cards that you can experiment with, and it doesn't even have to be the legendary rule that you focus on. You could, again, just focus on creatures that have good damage triggers, hoping that at least one of your opponents isn't able to block. I think that is one way that you could build around Blade of Selves for, but it's not the most interesting. This is probably the coolest way to build around it, with legendary creatures, your commanders, that have cool interactions. Now, it is a super expensive card. It's not like Fractured Identity that's still relatively cheap. It's been some time since Commander 2015, and this card hasn't been reprinted yet, We haven't seen the Myriad mechanic since. Very unique, something that a lot of people want, not just for artifact equipment based decks, but for just combo decks that want to have that bit of fun. It's a cool card. It's not going to be overwhelmingly powerful most of the time, especially if you're focusing it on creatures that will survive and don't die to the legendary rule. But you of course have those legendary creatures that are just insanely powerful with this card. It's one of those weird interactions that I'm not sure if they were aware was going to be possible when they made the Myriad mechanic a thing that you could equip to creatures. But nevertheless, it's been a fun time playing with this card, playing against it, seeing what you could possibly do with this. If there are other interactions that you guys know about with this card, feel free to leave those in the comments section. I want to hear about them all. I love this card, and I will definitely love thinking about the next card that I make this series about. So if you like this video, and you haven't watched my previous video, I did that one on Fractured Identity. I think you'd like it if you haven't already watched it. But yeah, Blade of Selves is just an amazing card. It's pretty expensive as far as money goes, but definitely worth it for the good times. But as always, you guys have a wonderful day. Void here signing off. See you all next video.